Hey everyone, here is a Desmos how-to video on your assignment for today, just in case our technology doesn't work again. With this video, it'll teach you how to use Desmos in a few ways you might not be familiar with, and it'll show you how to do a sample problem using the snipping tool and all that other good stuff. So when you start, make sure you're on the Desmos screen. I'm at desmos.com/calculator, and I see my name here, and that means I'm signed into my account. So you're going to get a set of problems today that look something like this, okay? Our first question, or our first scenario statement, is a professional organizer charges $45 for the consultation fee plus $20 per hour. And our first question asks us to write an equation to represent this situation and to define what your x and y variables mean in context of the problem. So you're going to be typing your answers on a Word document like this as well. So we would start with y equals 45 plus 20x. And it also says to define what those mean. So x in this case stands for hours, and that's our independent variable. Remember that we talked about the difference between independent and dependent. Independent variables are not affected by anything else, whereas the dependent variable depends on what the independent variable is doing in a situation. All right, our y in this case stands for the total amount of money that that person charges, because they charge $45 one time for the consultation fee plus $20 per hour. All right, now we're going to describe our slope and our y-intercept. So let's write out our slope. Our slope in this case, we know our slope is always next to the x value, so our slope here is 20. Our slope, what that represents is the cost per hour. That's what's being charged. As every hour increases, we're being charged another $20 by this professional organizer. Our y-intercept is the 45, and that represents the consultation fee. And if we don't use the organizer for any hours at all, 0 hours, we're still going to be charged 45 for that consultation fee. And remember, when we look at a y-intercept, it's going to be 0, 45. When people say the y-intercept is just 45, we really want to refer to it as a point. Great, so we're going to jump over to Desmos now, and I'll show you kind of a cool thing you can do with Desmos and tables and graphing. It's pretty neat. So we're back to Desmos. In our first box over here, we're going to type in the equation that we just made. You need to use x and y, otherwise Desmos can't read what you're talking about. You can either use the keyboard to type it in, or you can use some of the pop-up keyboard that is down here. If you want to hide that, you just click the button that says hide. So we have 45 plus 20x, and you're going to notice a line that shows up. All right. So this isn't really a good picture of my line because I don't even see my y-intercept from the start. That's not good. So what we're going to do is adjust our x and y axis. So how I'm doing this is just moving my screen around, okay? And I'm going to shrink my y-axis and expand my x-axis so I get this picture a little better. Now I can really see what's going on here. My y-intercept right here is 0.45. That's exactly what I said in my sample problem. This is perfect. I can see that down here I have 1 hour, 2 hours, and I can even adjust that more if I want to. If I want to show just even numbers, whatever. Notice how I'm not showing this part of the graph here, because I can't have negative hours and I can't have a negative amount of money I'm charging someone. So we're going to be sticking in the first quadrant for this question. The next part of our problems said that we had to create a table of values that will help you graph the situation. So if we go back to Desmos, and we'll go in our second box, if you hit this plus sign, it says add item, and what we're going to do is add a table. And if you notice, a table pops up right here. X1 stands for all of your x values, and Y1 stands for your y values. So we're going to just type in, we're going to do 5 different points. So you're looking for 5 points on each one. So let's say my x is 0. My y, in this case, if I were to substitute an x in here, or a 0 in here, we would get 45 plus 20 times 0, or 45 plus 0 is just 45. And notice my point popped up right on my line. That's another reason why I know I'm correct. Let's say I substitute a 1 into the equation. I would have 45 plus 20, and that makes 65. And look, that point has now entered into our picture here. 2 hours. We would basically be adding another $20, so we'd be at 85. I'm going to skip to 4 hours. Let's say, so we have the 4 times the 20, which is 80 plus 45 more. And let's say I thought that was 125, all right? Which we've got our point right there. Let's say, I meant to say, let's say we put 120. We know right away that that answer is not right because that point is not falling on our line. Good, and then we'll do one more point. I'll just say 5 hours. And my points show up there, okay? So what the question here says is create a table of values that will help you graph the situation. What we're going to do is we're actually going to take a screenshot of the table that we made. And to do that, you use the snipping tool. If you type in on your home bar snipping tool, it'll come right up. You're gonna hit new snip, and you're going to take a picture of that like this. This button here says copy. We'll copy that and we'll place it into our Word document. Perfect. Now this looks way too big, so let's shrink it down a little bit. Awesome. So right now I've got my equation, I've defined my variables, I've defined my slope and y-intercept, I have an awesome table. We're on to our last 2 parts. It says label the graph axes, and believe it or not, this is the plural of axis is axes. It looks like axes, like that you cut wood with, but it's axes. Let's go back. We're going to label those. Now, how we do that is this little wrench in the corner that says graph settings. We're going to click that and notice how it says x-axis, add label. Now, we know our x-axis was talking about hours, so we're going to type that in and notice how hours shows up here in the corner. We're also going to type in our y-axis, which was total cost or total charge, we'll say. You could say total amount of money. And notice how I have my x or my x-axis and my y-axis labeled. I'm also going to take a screenshot of that here, which y'all are going to see a little bit of extra stuff, but we have that. Okay, so you'll see my little red line from the recording. The last part of this is to, once you take a screenshot of your graph with the snipping tool, it says draw and label the slope on the graph and circle the y-intercept. So that shows me you understand where the slope is coming from, where the rise over run is, and then where the y-intercept is as well. So on my screenshot, these tools up here are pens. So I'll use the blue pen. It says to circle the y-intercept, so we've done that. And then we need to show the rise over the run and label that. So I'm going to show that as well. Use my pen tool. I'm going to go from this point to this point right here. And that wasn't the straightest line, but you get the point right there. I need to show how far we rose and how far we ran in this case. The run is pretty easy to find. It looks like we just ran 1 hour. So I'm just going to label a 1 right here. Now, how much we increased by, how much we went up by. It looks like right now, if we were to draw those labels in, we are at 60, 70, 80, and 90. And we're currently at 65, and we rose up to 85. So the difference between 65 and 85 is 20. So that's, I'm drawing in my slope. And if you notice, you're going to get the same thing here. For instance, this triangle here that I draw out, this is 2 and 40, which simplifies to 20 over 1. So again, all you have to do is circle the y-intercept and show and label the slope like this. Again, I'm going to hit this button right here. That means copy. I'm going to copy my picture, and I'm going to paste it into my Word document like this. Again, looks really big, but I'll shrink it down a little more even. Perfect. I've got some extra space here on the top and on the bottom, so I can just delete that by hitting the backspace button. Make sure you don't accidentally delete your picture like I almost just did. And perfect. We have answered every single question here, and it gives us a really good idea of the knowledge that we should have about graphing. We, again, made an equation, labeled our independent variable and our dependent variable. We described our slope and y-intercept and identified them from an equation. We created a table of values, and we graphed our equation. We circled the y-intercept, showed how we can find the slope, and labeled that with the correct markings, and we also labeled our x and y axis. So that's what you're going to do for a few other problems today. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.